Black nurse gets fired by supervisor until phone call reveals she's chief of surgery's daughter. The fluorescent lights in the trauma wing hum like a threat. Aaliyah Carter steadies her gloved hands over a teenage patient's chest as the monitor screams 160 beats per minute. A junior resident fumbles in 4. Aaliyah catches it mid-slip, tapes the line, and fixes the drip with a clean, practiced motion. Step back, her supervisor snaps. You're overstepping. I'm saving him, Aaliyah says, voice even, eyes locked on the boy whose breaths are getting shorter. Heparin at this dose will tank him. He's post-op and bleeding. The supervisor, nurse manager Linda Prescott, grabs the syringe anyway. It's in the order set, she barks. Do not contradict me in front of a doctor. It's the wrong patient profile, Aaliyah says. His hematocrit dropped 12 points in 2 hours. He needs reversal, not more bleed risk. The resident looks helpless. The boy's mother sobs against the curtain. Aaliyah reaches, palms up, calm. I'll take responsibility. Hold heparin. Hang fluids. Get labs. Now, the boy's oxygen creeps back from 88 to 93. Linda's lips flatten. Pack up your station, she says, loud enough for the bay to hear. You're done. Effective immediately. The mother's cry turns sharp. The resident's face blanks. A tech drops a tray. Linda points toward the staff doors like Aaliyah is trash to be taken out. You're firing me? For preventing a med error? Aaliyah asks. For insubordination, Linda says, savoring the word. Turn in your badge. Silence swallows the room, except for the monitor's steady beep, proof that a heartbeat Aaliyah protected is still here. If you believe justice matters, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who need them most. It's a Tuesday in late September, the kind of day that smells like coffee and antiseptic and unspoken rules. St. Bartholomew Medical Center rises 30 stories over the city, a glass and steel promise that health isn't just for those who can afford it, though everyone on staff knows the billing department tells a harder truth. Patients from every corner of the city come here because the trauma team is fast and the surgical outcomes are glossy poster board bragging rights in lobby hallways. Aaliyah knows those outcomes personally. 27. RN, BSN, Trauma and Surgical Step-Down, certified in ACLS and PALS. 3 years in the trenches, 0 preventable patient injuries on her watch. She wears her hair in tight, protective curls tucked neatly under her scrub cap, the way her late grandmother taught her a crown is a thing you learn to balance. A tiny silver stethoscope charm rests at the hollow of her throat, the only jewelry she breaks the rules for. She keeps double pens in her pocket, a spare tourniquet, and a folded sticky note with affirmations that look like prayers when you read them on no sleep. Her smile is soft with patience and steel with chaos. Chaos has a name today. It's Linda. Nurse manager Linda Prescott has a way of turning everything into a policy violation when it comes to Aaliyah. Too assertive, too many questions. Too many corrections when doctors are speaking. Too much. Too black. She never says that last part out loud. She doesn't have to. The message rides in on 1,000 little things, the way Linda clocks Aaliyah's bracelets but ignores a white nurse's acrylics, the way she says your tone when Aaliyah advocates for a patient, the way the schedule changes at the last minute so Aaliyah pulls more doubles than anyone else on the unit because you're so reliable. Reliable is the compliment that keeps you tired. What happened next will shock you. 30 minutes before the firing, the trauma bay is a storm. EMS rolls in with a 17-year-old, post-appendectomy, diaphoretic, tachycardic, pale. The resident, nice kid, terrified, reads the post-op pathway like scripture and orders heparin prophylaxis with one eye on the wrong column. Aaliyah hears the numbers and sees the kid's lips, the bruised blue at the corners, the shallow rise and fall. Hold, she says. Let me confirm labs. Linda, who arrived late with iced coffee and a grievance to chew on, steps into the space like a referee who already picked a winner. Orders placed, Linda says. Follow them. They're based on the clean recovery column, Aaliyah says, already spinning to the computer, already pulling the labs, already knowing what she's going to find because she listened with her hands on the kid's wrist. His post-op course isn't clean. Ms. Carter, Linda starts, using Ms. like a blade. It's Nurse Carter, Aaliyah replies, still calm. And the hematocrit is 22. A hiss of shock from the med student. The resident blanches. The mother starts praying in Spanish. Wrong column, Aaliyah says quietly, not to shame the resident but to catch the bleeding before it goes from invisible to unstoppable. To Linda, courtesy is defiance. She takes the syringe and makes a show of holding it high, as if light can sanitize arrogance. Administering, she announces, and that's when Aaliyah steps in. Her hands don't shake. They never do when a life is in the balance. Not on my patient, she says. The resident's mouth opens and closes. The med student looks like she might faint. The mother clutches her rosary. The boy's eyelids flutter. Do you want to be responsible for a PE? Linda demands in a voice pitched to the gallery of ears. Is that it? Do you think you know better than a surgeon? Aaliyah meets her eyes. I want to be responsible for him still being alive, she says. And yes, today, about this dose, I do know better. She slips the syringe away, locks it, flags pharmacy for urgent review, and orders labs. Then she runs warm fluids, positions the kid, checks the incision site, and gently coaches his breaths back into a rhythm that doesn't sound like goodbye. The monitor steadies. The mother's shoulders drop. The room exhales. Linda doesn't. Pack up your station, Linda says, each word a nail in a box. You are done here. Middle of the unit, in full view of patients, visitors, and a nurse she's training, Aaliyah removes her badge with fingers that want to shake but refuse. She places it on the stainless table like a sacrament. The world blurs for a breath, the way it did when she was 8 and learned what grief sounds like through a closed bedroom door. Security will escort you, Linda says, as if Aaliyah is dangerous. Aaliyah looks past Linda to the mother, who mouths thank you around a sob. She nods. Tiny. Nearly invisible. Enough. If you do this, Aaliyah says to Linda, do it in writing. And copy HR. Oh, we will, Linda says, satisfied. For insubordination. For creating an unsafe work environment. For tone. There it is. The word that punishes you for speaking with your whole voice. Tone doesn't kill patients, Aaliyah says softly. Wrong meds do. Escorted out, Linda spits. The younger nurses are stone still at their pods. One bites her lip so hard it goes white. The tech who always sneaks Aaliyah extra graham crackers looks down at his shoes. They all know. They all pretend they don't. If you've ever watched a black woman in a place she earned being asked to leave like she stole the chair, you know this moment. The moment when dignity becomes a full-time job. Aaliyah keeps her back straight and her steps measure through the sliding staff doors to the narrow hallway where grief is supposed to slip off your shoulders before you go back to the bright room. She doesn't let it. Her locker is dented, third from the end, with a sticker of a tiny plant growing out of concrete. She peels her gloves and tosses them. She breathes once and opens the door. Inside, a spare pair of scrubs, a lemon-scented hand cream, a half-eaten protein bar, and a photo strip from a cheap booth, her and her mother on graduation day, cheeks pressed, the words we did it scrawled in ink beneath. Her phone buzzes, face down. She doesn't look. She takes off her stethoscope and holds it. It weighs almost nothing and everything. Security's here in 2 minutes like the building has a panic button for nurses with opinions. Curt, but not cruel, the taller one says, Ms. Carter, we've been asked to. It's nurse, she says out of habit. Then, softer, I know. I'm walking. They flank her like she's a risk. Maybe she is, to the kind of order that confuses silence with safety. At the end of the hallway, Linda waits with a white envelope. HR's template for a clean kill. Sign for receipt, Linda says. Where's the incident write-up? Aaliyah asks. Where's the medication override note? Where's the notation that I prevented a contraindicated administration on a hemorrhaging post-op? Linda's eyes glitter. You changed the plan of care without authorization. I prevented harm, Aaliyah says. You embarrassed a doctor, Linda says. Which one is the policy? Aaliyah asks. No harm, or no embarrassment? Linda's smile slices. Both. When you're the one causing the harm. And there it is, clear as day. The story will be written without Aaliyah in it unless she writes it herself. She signs for receipt. She does not sign that she agrees. Here's what nobody tells you about hospitals. They're cities. They have mayors and alleys and backroom deals in the cafeteria. They have maps no one prints. They have gossip that lives longer than a tumor and reputations that can do what infections do: spread and fester and ruin. Aaliyah learned the map the hard way her first year, when a senior nurse told her to smile more before rounding with a white attending who liked to keep things light, meaning, don't call me on sloppy orders. She learned it when the 4-pump malfunctioned and risk management asked why she hadn't documented a malfunction on a pump that had a history she couldn't access. She learned it when patients' families brought her thank you cards with trembling hands after discharge, and Linda rerouted them to unit leadership because we share gratitude here. Share is a nice way to say erase the name that did the work. She learned the map by surviving it until survival felt too small. That's why the envelope in her hand doesn't feel like shock. It feels like the last page of a chapter she was always going to outgrow, but grief still has hands. It squeezes. She ducks into the staff bathroom, the one with the flickering light in the mirror that makes everyone look 2 shades paler, and she lets one tear slide. Just one. Enough to honor the part of her that wants to crawl under a table and stay there. Then she washes her face, and she looks herself in the eye the way she teaches her patients to do when they're afraid. "Hey," she whispers. "You were right. You were brave. You were gentle. You were right." The door opens and someone slips in. Cass, the charge nurse on nights, with tired eyes and a heart that never learned to quit. "I heard," Cass says. "Of course you did," Aaliyah says. "Rye." "I'm sorry," Cass says. "If I say more I'll get written up for gossip." "You already are," Aaliyah says. By breathing, Cass glances at the envelope. "They'll say tone." "They already did," Aaliyah says. "They'll say unsafe." "They always do," Cass says. Until something explodes. They stand in the flicker and the hum and the smell of harsh lemon cleaner. "There's a complaint channel," Cass whispers finally. "The real one. Not the link that goes to Linda. The one that goes above her. If you want it." Aaliyah's chest aches. Not from fear, from gratitude. It feels like a secret door. "Send it," she says. Cass nods once. "Check your personal email in 10. What happens if I file?" Aaliyah asks, already knowing. "Everything you think," Cass says. "And maybe something better." Back in the locker room, the buzz on her phone is constant now, her best friend Micah's name lighting the screen, then her mother's, then a blocked number that pings like a warning bell. She ignores them and writes the facts while they're still hot enough to bend like metal. Time, names, vitals, orders, what she did, what she refused to do, why. She saves the note twice. She sends it to herself. She prints a copy and folds it into the envelope alongside the template HR wants her to pretend is truth. She writes across the front in black Sharpie, counterstatement. "Witnesses available." The Sharpie squeaks like a scream. On her way out, she passes the trauma bay. The boy is sleeping. His mother mouths "Dios te bendiga" through the glass. "Bless you." Aaliyah lifts her hand to the glass and presses her palm. It feels like a vow. In the hallway, a resident trots to catch up, breathless and 30 shades of sorry. He starts. "I didn't mean, I didn't know." "You meant well," Aaliyah says gently. "One day that won't be enough. Make it today." He swallows. "I reported the order set error," he whispers. "To IT and the attending." "I told the attending you saved him." "That's a start," Aaliyah says. "I also told Linda she was wrong," he adds, voice small. "That's a risk," Aaliyah says. "I know," he says. "But it's the truth." Truth is a light that makes liars invent curtains. She hopes he's ready. By the time she reaches the revolving door, the world outside is bright and indifferent, like the city never once paused for a woman losing the job she worked nights and weekends and holidays to deserve. Her phone finally gets her attention with the force of persistence. "Micah again." She answers. "Tell me you're okay," Micah says without hello, the way friends do when they're already in the room with you in their heads. "I'm not," Aaliyah says. "But I'm upright." "What happened?" Micah asks, and Aaliyah tells it all in a slow, steady stream that sounds like someone else's life. When she's done, she's shaking. "You did the right thing," Micah says. "You always do." "Funny how expensive it is," Aaliyah says, half laugh. "Rent is still due." "Come to my place," Micah says. Crash. Breathe. Then we plan. "I have to file," Aaliyah says. "Cass sent me a link." "Good," Micah says. "And I have a guy who knows the press, if you need it." "Not yet," Aaliyah says. "I don't want a circus. I want a record." "Records scare them," Micah says. "You know what scares them more?" "What?" "Who your father is." The words land like an echo from another life. "I don't use that," Aaliyah says automatically. "Maybe today you should," Micah says. Her thumb slips to the blocked number in her call log and taps details. She doesn't call back. She already knows who it is. She has not used the name that opens doors because she wanted to kick them down herself and leave them open for whoever came behind. She wanted to prove she didn't need a shadow to make her bigger. She wanted her work to speak louder than any last name could. But the thing about shadows is they also make shade. And sometimes shade is protection. Not today, she tells herself. Not yet. At home, the apartment smells like eucalyptus and lemon peel, the way she left it, grateful for small constants. She sinks to the rug and opens her laptop. Cass's email sits at the top with the subject line Official, Civil Rights/Patient Safety Intake. There is a second email from Cass with names, Quiet Allies, people who saw what happened and will talk if they're asked the right way. There is an email from HR too. Of course there is. Separation packet attached. 3 PDFs and a slide deck about moving forward like leaving is a lifestyle brand. She ignores HR. She clicks the intake link. The form loads with government blues and grays and fields that want her to strip her story down to codes. She refuses to let the form shrink her. She gives it everything. Under Describe the incident, she writes the patient's initials, the lab values, the order set, the verbal exchange, the outcome. Under Protected Class, she checks race. Under Retaliation, she writes Linda's words exactly, pack up your station. You're done. Effective immediately. Under Witnesses, she lists names and titles and pager numbers. Under Evidence, she uploads the note she wrote while her hands were still buzzing with the sound a monitor makes when a life steadies. At the bottom, the form asks, "Are you willing to participate in an investigation?" She checks yes. "May we contact you by phone?" She checks yes. "Do you fear further harm if we do?" She hesitates. She checks yes. She hits Submit. The site spins like a coin deciding which side to land on. Then, your report has been filed. Case #27SBMCCIV914. A case number is a small thing until it's not. She prints it, tapes it to the fridge with a magnet that says nevertheless. She makes tea with honey and ginger because her mother swears it cures the kind of sore that isn't throat, isn't heart, but somewhere in between. She holds the cup and watches the steam make the air look gentle. Her phone lights with a new message from a number labeled Mom. "Call me now." She types, "I'm okay. I'll call tonight." 3 dots. Then, "Tonight is too far." She smiles, even though her eyes sting. Her mother always loved like urgency. The phone rings again, the blocked number. She lets it go to voicemail. The alert pops up, "You have one new message." She listens. "Ms. Carter," a voice says. "This is the Office of Civil Rights and Patient Safety. We received your report. Please call us back as soon as possible. Also, this is unusual, but you should know, a senior hospital official just contacted our line about your case before we even logged it. We cannot disclose names. But you seem to have attention." The room goes still. Attention is a word that can mean protection. It can also mean target. Her thumb hovers over the phone app. Micah's words replay. "You know what scares them more? Who your father is." A knock interrupts, sharp, official. 3 beats. A pause. 2 more. Not a friend's knock. A knock that says, "We don't leave without an answer." Her heart flips. She pads to the door and checks the peephole. In the fisheye glass, 2 figures in hospital ID lanyards and suits stand shoulder to shoulder, flanked by a hospital security officer whose eyes don't meet the peephole. Between their hands, a manila folder. On their faces, the look people wear when they've learned to smile without teeth. "Miss Carter," the older one calls through the door in a practiced tone. "We're from compliance. We'd like to talk." She doesn't open. She knows better than to have a conversation she can't record. She knows better than to help write the version of the story where she is angry first and wrong last. "Please schedule through counsel," she calls back. "Anything else can go by email." Silence. A shuffling. A card slides under the door. "Thank you for your time," the voice says, polite like a trap. She waits until the hall goes quiet again, then picks up the card. On it, a name she recognizes from hospital orientation videos, a man who narrates ethics while the camera pans over hands that never drop a syringe. Below it, a second name she knows from whispers, someone who always handles things smoothly. Her phone buzzes again. "Micah, you need backup?" "Mom, please answer." Blocked, voicemail. She exhales. "I'm okay," she texts Micah. "For now." She opens a new message to her mother. Stops. Opens a new message to herself instead and writes, "I am not small." When she sets the phone down, it buzzes one more time, an email from an address she never expected to see. executive.office@bartholomew.org. Subject, a conversation. The body is one line. "Ms. Carter, I believe there has been a grave mistake. Please call me directly." No signature. No name. Just a number that ends in 0001, the kind of extension that sits on a floor where carpets are thick and views are expensive. She doesn't call. Not yet, because something is shifting. Because people who never look down suddenly see the ground trembling. Because someone called some office before the ink on her case number dried. And because a story is a living thing, and this one is taking a breath. But the truth is about to come out. She sleeps only in fragments, each one like a page corner turned down to find later. Morning comes with a sun too bright for what she has to do. She dresses in clean navy scrubs because not having a place to wear them yet doesn't mean they aren't hers. She braids her hair back into the cap she's still allowed to wear because no one owns your morning routine but you. She pins her badge holder with no badge to her pocket like a promise. Downstairs, the city smells like wet concrete and bus exhaust and bakery air that makes you hungry even when you're full of adrenaline. She orders a coffee from the corner bodega. The guy at the counter, who calls everyone chief and boss, calls her doc today. She doesn't correct him. On the bench outside, she opens her laptop and drafts a letter to the board of nursing. She's not reporting Linda. Not yet. She's documenting what happened in case anyone tries to make her into the villain of a story that belongs to a patient in a post-op pathway, and the words first do no harm. She's mid-sentence when her phone rings with a local number she doesn't recognize but feels in her bones. She answers because every choice now is a seed you'll harvest later. Miss Carter, a voice says, close and careful. This is Catherine Lee from the Office of Civil Rights and Patient Safety. I wanted you to hear from a person, not just a portal. We opened your case. Thank you, Aaliyah says. We'll be requesting records from the hospital today, Catherine says. We'll need your consent to obtain your employee file too. You can have it, Aaliyah says. All of it. And I have to tell you, Catherine says, words slowing like she's choosing each one from a locked drawer, a senior hospital official reached out to us before you filed. That never happens. It reads as, concern. Concern for me? Aaliyah asks, surprised. Concern for what you know, Catherine says. Do you feel safe? Aaliyah looks at her coffee, at the people moving fast to jobs they still have, at the way the city can hold your hurt and not break. I do, she says, and it's almost true. And I'm not alone. Good, Catherine says. One more thing. A call came into our general line early this morning. The caller didn't give a name. He said, protect her. She did the right thing. Then he hung up. Aaliyah's throat tightens. Do you recognize the voice? Catherine asks. Aaliyah could say yes. She could say his name and collapse the distance between the life she's building and the life she comes from. She could take the shortcut, lay it down, and let it carry her. She says no, because right now this needs to be about the system and the boy in Bay 3 and the word insubordination being used like a muzzle. Understood, Catherine says. We'll be in touch. The call ends. Aaliyah closes her laptop. She breathes. She watches a bus kneel for a passenger with a cane, and a dog tug a kid down the street, and a woman in a neon vest help a man with a map find north like it's a treasure. Her phone vibrates one more time. This time it's a text from a number she doesn't have saved but knows by heart anyway, because some numbers are muscles you never lose. Baby, it says. I heard something. Are you okay? No signature. There never is. She types and deletes and types again. I'm okay, she sends. I filed. There's a long pause, the kind that means someone is pacing a window like a metronome. Then, do you want me to call the hospital? She stares at the words. Power sits on the screen like a coiled thing. Her thumb hovers over no. It hovers over yes. It lands on neither. Not yet, she writes. Let me try this my way first. Your way is brave, the reply comes quickly, like relief. Call me when you're ready. I am here. She smiles. It's complicated, that smile. It tastes like pride and stubbornness and a childhood where love sounded like scrubs rustling home at midnight. She pockets the phone. She stands. She aims herself at the day like an arrow. And that's when everything changes again. Because as she steps off the curb, a black SUV glides to the fire lane with hazard lights flashing. A hospital emblem glints on the dash. The rear door opens from the inside like a magic trick. A woman in a navy suit steps out, HR's director, flanked by the hospital's in-house counsel. Behind them, a man in surgical scrubs that cost more than rent steps down, cap in his fist, face tight with the kind of anger that isn't loud dangerous because it's quiet. The street noise hushes in Aaliyah's head. He looks at her like a father looks when he's run every red light between his office and his child. Miss Carter, the HR director says, voice syrup over a blade. We'd like to invite you to a meeting to clear up some misunderstandings. Aaliyah opens her mouth, ready to decline. But the man in scrubs speaks first, to the director, not to her, voice low enough to cut without leaving a mark. There are no misunderstandings, he says. Only a record. And we're going to make one. He turns to Aaliyah then, gaze softening, and for a split second the city drops away. Walk with me, he says quietly. Please, she hesitates. He doesn't say her name. He doesn't have to, because sometimes the history you've been trying to outrun meets you at the curb with hazard lights flashing. The truth is about to come out, and that's when everything changes. The shift turns ugly. Nia walks back into the break room, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. Her hands are still trembling from the confrontation with Miss Halstead, the nursing supervisor who just publicly announced she was too inexperienced for a critical care floor. Around her, other nurses avoid making eye contact. It's the kind of silence that screams complicity. No one wants to be next, but Nia knows it's more than that. She's been the only black nurse on this floor for 3 months, and every policy reminder, every random check, every unnecessary double signature has landed squarely on her shoulders. A few minutes later, a rapid response call comes over the intercom. Room 417. Cardiac arrest. Nia doesn't hesitate. She sprints down the hall, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum, her stethoscope bouncing against her chest. When she bursts into the room, chaos has already taken over. A patient in his 70s lies motionless, alarms screaming. 2 nurses are fumbling with the crash cart, and a resident looks frozen, eyes wide with panic. Move! Nia's voice cuts through the panic like a scalpel. She checks the airway, starts compressions, calls out medication doses with precision. Her training, her instincts, everything kicks in. Within minutes, there's a faint pulse. The room exhales in relief. But as the dust settles, Ms. Halstead appears in the doorway, arms crossed, lips pursed. Who authorized you to lead that code? She asks, her voice dripping with accusation instead of gratitude. Nia looks up from the patient she just saved. My training authorizes me. And the fact that no one else was moving. Gasps ripple through the room. Halstead's face flushes crimson. Insubordination will not be tolerated. My office. Now, if you believe nurses deserve respect no matter their color, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like this. In the cramped office, Halstead doesn't even sit down. You're done here. Clean out your locker. I'll have security escort you out. Nia blinks. You're firing me? For saving a patient? For going outside your role, undermining authority, and creating a hostile environment? The hypocrisy is suffocating. She saved a life, but in Halstead's world, being confident while black is grounds for dismissal. Nia's phone buzzes in her pocket. She glances down, her father's name flashes on the screen. She almost lets it go to voicemail, but something in her chest says answer. She swipes to pick up. Daddy? Baby, what's wrong? You sound upset. Nia exhales shakily. I just got fired. Right after running a code and saving someone's life. There's a pause. A long one. Then her father's voice drops into a tone she's only heard a few times in her life. The tone that means trouble for whoever's on the wrong side of it. Nia, put me on speaker. And make sure Ms. Halstead hears every word I'm about to say. The reveal. Nia's thumb taps the speaker icon. The tiny office suddenly feels too small for the voice that fills it. This is Dr. Marcus Ellington, her father says. His tone is low. Controlled. But it's the kind of controlled that makes people stand straighter without knowing why. Across from her, Ms. Halstead freezes mid-breath. The name hangs in the air like a dropped scalpel. Dr. Marcus Ellington, the chief of surgery at St. Matthew's Medical Center. The man whose name sits at the top of every surgical success board in the region. The man whose signature can open or close entire departments. Miss Halstead, he continues, voice sharpening, my daughter just informed me that you terminated her employment immediately after she let a code blue and saved a patient's life. Halstead swallows hard. Dr. Ellington, this is not. Do not interrupt me, he says, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Nia sits still, watching the color drain from Halstead's face. Her father's voice is calm, but every word lands like a gavel strike. You're about to explain to me, in exact detail, why a nurse with a spotless record, advanced certifications, and commendations from previous employers is being fired for acting decisively in a medical emergency. Halstead's eyes flick toward Nia. Her lips part, but no words come out. Before you speak, Dr. Ellington says, I should also mention that I'm currently in the hospital boardroom, preparing to chair a quarterly review. The CEO, the CMO, and the head of HR are all present. They can hear every word of this call. A bead of sweat forms at Halstead's temple. Nia feels her heart thudding in her chest, not from fear anymore, but from the slow, dawning shift of power. This will go into the minutes, her father adds. And if I hear anything resembling retaliation, discrimination, or a falsified report, I will open a full internal investigation under my authority as chief of surgery. Is that clear? Yes, Dr. Ellington, Halstead whispers. Silence. And then her father's voice softens just a fraction. Now, you're going to reinstate Nurse Ellington immediately. You're going to file a commendation for her performance in today's code. And you're going to send me a copy by the end of the day. Halstead nods quickly, forgetting he can't see her. Why yes, sir. Of course. Nia's father pauses, then says, and Miss Halstead, you will address my daughter with the respect her title deserves. It's Nurse Ellington. Don't forget it again. The line clicks dead. Halstead exhales shakily. Her eyes dart everywhere but at Nia. Your badge, she says finally, voice tight. I'll have it reactivated. Nia stands, slow and deliberate. She takes the badge from the desk without breaking eye contact. Don't worry, she says quietly. I won't forget this conversation either. As Nia steps into the hallway, whispers ripple through the nurses' station. Everyone has heard by now. Some look shocked. Some look relieved. A few look proud. The tide has turned. And Nia knows this isn't the end, it's the beginning. Justice and fallout. By the time Nia returns to the floor, the story has already grown legs. Someone from ICU has texted someone in radiology. Someone in pediatrics is whispering at the coffee cart. The entire hospital is humming with the news. The chief of surgery's daughter just got fired and rehired in the same hour. When she walks back into the break room, conversation dies mid-sentence. A few nurses smile and nod, others avoid eye contact, but all of them feel the shift. Nia doesn't gloat. She just picks up her chart, logs her patient notes, and goes back to work. Because that's what she's always done, even when no one was watching. Upstairs, in the boardroom, Dr. Marcus Ellington is not done. The CEO leans forward. Marcus, this incident, how do you want to handle it? I want it handled formally, he says. An internal review of Ms. Halstead's conduct, including her history of terminations, disciplinary actions, and complaints. The head of HR shifts uncomfortably. We have received multiple anonymous reports about her behavior, she admits. Then it's time they stopped being anonymous, he replies. People don't stay silent unless they think nothing will change. That ends today. By the next morning, HR has opened a formal investigation. Past emails are pulled. Witness statements are taken. And a pattern emerges. Halstead's record shows a history of disproportionately disciplining nurses of color, assigning them less favorable shifts, and blocking promotions with vague accusations like poor attitude or not a good team fit. It's not just Nia. It's a dozen names over 5 years. 3 days later, Halstead is called into HR. The meeting lasts 20 minutes. When she leaves, her office is already being cleared by security. Word spreads quickly. Some say she resigned. Others say she was asked to resign. Either way, she's gone. The hospital sends a staff-wide email. St. Matthew's Medical Center is committed to upholding the highest standards of equity, respect, and patient safety. We will not tolerate discriminatory behavior at any level of leadership. We thank Nurse Nia Ellington for exemplifying the decisive action, professionalism, and dedication that define our mission. Nia reads it twice. Her phone buzzes with messages from nurses she's never even met. Thank you for speaking up. You gave me hope. You made it safer for all of us. A week later, she's called into the boardroom. The CEO hands her a framed certificate. Commendation for outstanding patient care and leadership. Cameras flash. Reporters from the local paper take notes. Dr. Ellington stands in the back, smiling like he's trying not to. On her way out, a young nursing student stops her in the hallway. I heard what happened, the student says quietly. I'm starting here next month, and I was nervous, but now I know someone like me can belong here. Nia smiles. You don't just belong, she says. You deserve to be here. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That night, she sits at her kitchen table with a cup of tea, watching the city lights through the window. She thinks about the boy in room 417, alive because she trusted herself. She thinks about every nurse who came before her, and everyone who will come after. Her father's words echo in her mind. Never forget who you are, and never let them forget it either. If you believe in standing up for what's right, no matter the risk, hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more, because silence protects the wrong people, and your voice might just save a life.